Welcome to another tier list. I'm your host Henry, and this time we're going to be doing all of the Star Wars novels that I have read over the past couple of years. There's a lot of them, as you can see. I didn't count the exact number, but I think it's over 20. And yeah, so we're going to be doing that here. And when I say read, just as a little caveat, I mean listen to the audiobooks, because I have listened to the audiobooks for all of these. They are very well produced. I would highly recommend them. And like anything read by Mark Thompson is fantastic. Not all of these were read by Mark Thompson, but he does a lot of them. A lot of the Zahn stuff, the Timothy Zahn stuff. He has read the audiobooks for them, and it's very good. The Razor's Edge, and I know Battlefront, Twilight Company were read by different narrators, but point still stands there. Very well produced. I will also be going over some spoilers for some of these various stories as I kind of hit some of the highlights of the stories or like the plot contents for these. So just be aware. I would recommend reading through almost all of these. There's one in here that I don't really like. There's one that's definitely going to be going that deserves the not great, to be honest, tier, but we'll get into that. So I'm going to be going through the order in which I read them, which I've aligned right here. And I kind of rearranged the tier lists or the tiered names a little bit just to kind of how I think of them instead of just doing a flat, S, A, B, C, D tier. I know a little bit more descriptive. I have negative opinions on almost none of them. So this is going to be a lot of praise heaped on a lot of these stories, but I still try and find the flaws where I can, because I like to be a positive person. I'd rather be positive than negative about the things that I enjoy in life. But I don't want to just be flat out like nothing is wrong with any of these stories and just ignore the flaws that are there, because even in the stuff that is going in peak fiction, there are flaws here and there. But this is not, an in-depth book review of all of them. That would probably take like 7 hours to do all of this. So I'm going to try and do this pretty quickly. Anyway, with that out of the way, please like, comment, and subscribe. Would love some engagement down in the comments below. And, comment what you think your favorite book is of the series. So we'll get started with Heir to the Empire, the classic, the one that started it all. I think it was actually Splinter of the Mind's Eye. That was the first the first official like Star Wars expanded universe story, but Heir to the Empire is what most would credit as sort of kicking off the proper expanded universe. And as such, Heir to the Empire is going into the incredibly fun tier, and it's going to stay at the top of the tier. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Heir to the Empire is really good. It deservedly holds all the accolades that it gets. It's just a very well crafted story overall. The massive amount of characters it introduces is great. Like you get, besides Thrawn himself, the main villain and one of the most popular Star Wars characters, it was certainly in the EU, but honestly, just period. You also get Mara Jade, you get Talon Card, you get your first hints of Jason and Jaina Solo. You also get Captain Pelion. There's a lot of like big players in the expanded universe that get introduced in this novel. Borsk Phalia as well. I almost forgot him. It's overall a just really good story. I think Timothy Zahn is really good at just writing the main cast as well. The original trilogy characters, so Luke, Han, and Leia, they all feel very fun. Like Luke, I think, is definitely matured a little bit in this, because this takes place in 9 ABY. So this is 9 years after episode 4, and I guess 5 years after episode 6, because I believe episode 6 takes place 4 years after episode 4. And you can see a lot more of the maturity and sort of the Jedi mastery of Luke Skywalker, but he's still, he got a little bit of that naive farm boy to him. Han's like always as sarcastic and witty and dry as ever. And Leia's a treat as well. She's great. Her arc over the course of the whole trilogy with the Nogri especially. Also Chewbacca is great as well. But yeah, Leia's arc with the Nogri in this is great. I could go on and on and on about Heir to the Empire, but I think what has needed to be said about this novel has been said many, many times over. And I'm just going to, end it right here with Heir to the Empire. Please go read it. It's really good. And so after that, we will get to the second book in the Thrawn trilogy, Dark Force Rising. And this picks up basically almost immediately after Heir to the Empire leaves off. So Heir to the Empire ends kind of with Akbar getting arrested after the Battle of Sluis Van, and Thrawn destroying a bunch of the rebel ships docked there, though he doesn't end up escaping with him. So Thrawn's looking for new fleet to bolster his forces, and that's where the Dark Force comes in, the massive fleet of Katana dreadnoughts. And Dark Force Rising is going into the really solid stories tier. It's just solid. I don't think it's quite as good as Heir to the Empire. It's very solid. I don't think it quite has the same highs as Heir does, but overall it's still very good. This also, I believe, is the one that introduces Garbel Iblis, and Iblis is a very fun character as well, as sort of a different take on a rebel general. I know it's the New Republic at this point, but like he's sort of like his story of kind of breaking off from the rebellion despite being one of its founders, because he was not happy with how Mon Mothma was taking things during the early signs of the rebellion, and he was thought he was going to be the next chancellor, and it was going to be a whole repeated cycle, so he kind of broke away with that. It's neat. It's a neat little view, and it's this is one that really starts to expand on Mara Jade and her story. She gets a lot of screen time, I feel like, in this. I know screen time's maybe not the most literal term, but as someone who watches a lot of movies, I'm just going to go with that. But overall, I think it's pretty fun. But it's the middle of the trilogy that is I think bookended more so than the others. And I think actually we're just going to move right along into Last Command, because Dark Force Rising, it's solid overall. It's just, I don't think it quite has the same high as Heir to the Empire. Last Command, as the finale for this trilogy, is also going into incredibly fun. It's not quite, I think, as good as Heir to the Empire, because I think Heir to the Empire is a pretty good self-contained story, but Last Command it really sticks the landing. And one thing I do tend to find that Zahn, I feel like when he writes, because I've actually read a lot of his stuff, and I feel like the way he ends things is a bit hit or miss sometimes here and there. Overall, I think he's pretty good, but I definitely feel like there's sometimes where his endings aren't quite as climactic as maybe they should be. The Last Command is not that. The Last Command has a very, very good ending, and overall the story it hits on a lot of beats that are set up over the course of the trilogy. The whole Delta mysterious tree plant spy thing that the Emperor set up in the Imperial Palace that allows Thrawn to listen in on all the conversations in the Imperial Palace. That gets set up early and gets paid off here. Obviously, the Nogri stuff gets paid off here. Everything with Thrawn, the Smugglers Alliance gets paid off here. It's everything with Jorah Sabaoth, who I completely neglected to mention this. That gets paid off in this. It's a very, very well done climax to the trilogy. I just think that Heir to the Empire is just a little bit better. All right. Next up, I actually don't know why these are switched. But Rogue Squadron, the X-Wing Rogue Squadron. So going to go through the first 4 books in the trilogy. And this is one where I do have to apologize a little bit. So I went through basically everything up through Plagueis back in 2023, I believe, is when it was. So a good few years ago at this point. And while I certainly remember a good bit of the Thrawn trilogy, the X-Wing trilogy, I don't remember quite as well. And I've gone back and read through a lot of summaries and, tried to reread them as much as I can. I just don't remember everything that went in. And especially for the first 2 books, they didn't stick out too much in my mind. And even going back and rereading from what I could through them, because I didn't really feel like going back through the full audiobooks. For Rogue Squadron, it was fine. It didn't wow me, honestly. I feel like from what I remember, the start was all right. It's Wedge is trying to reform Rogue Squadron a little bit, with a lot of the guys from the Rebellion era, but also getting a lot of new pilots as well. And then there's a point where they get attacked because they have a mole in their mix, and it's the whole initial suspicion is cast on Tycho Selchu because he was kidnapped by, I think, Isard at this point. I'm pretty sure it was by Isard, but then he returned, and so everyone was really suspicious of him, and he couldn't fly initially, but then he was able to start to fly because he cleared his name, and it was a whole thing. I don't remember this being bad at all. I just don't remember, like, it was fine from what I remember, but it wasn't super spectacular. And for Wedge's Gamble, it's kind of the same thing, to be honest. I just, this even more so, Wedge's Gamble more so than Rogue Squadron. I barely remember any of it. It just kind of went in and out. I feel like I don't remember like hating it when I was reading it, or even like thinking it was bad. And going back, it's like, it's got some good stuff to it. Like this is one where we see a lot more of Isard, and she's fantastic. Like, I'm gonna get to the Krytos trap in a sec, but like Isard plays much more of a role in Wedge's Gamble. There's also the Siege of Coruscant takes place in this book. That is sort of Wedge's Gamble is the Siege of Coruscant. And like, I remember that being good. It's just, I feel like the rest of it was fine. I think if I reread through like properly, I think through like the newer audiobooks that they've re-released since, I might, bump these up a tier or two. But for now, this is like, I definitely do apologize a little bit about these two, and even a little bit of Krytos Trap and Bacta War. My remembrance of them is not as great as the rest of these books, but it is what it is. Again, this is my list, my personal list, so you can rage all you want in the comments. I know I've certainly gotten a few unhappy comments here and there with some of my Star Wars videos, but it is what it is. And it's kind of the price you have to pay when you dip your toe into Star Wars. Anyway, though, Krytos Trap, I remember being very good. Actually, was this? No, I actually read my notes wrong. This is actually bumping up a tier into really solid. Yeah, Krytos Trap was really fun. This one, like, even if I don't remember everything that happened, I remember Krytos Trap being really good. And because this is the one where they're on Coruscant, but Cornhorn has since, at the end of Wedge's Gamble, he crashes his Z95 into the surface of Coruscant and gets captured by Isard, and he gets put into Lusankia. And it's like the Lusankia has been hyped up as this like mythical imperial prison that like is like, the gulags essentially. It's people go there and they never come out. You never know what happens to them. No one knows where it is. And the reveal that Lusankia is actually a super star destroyer built into the surface of Coruscant is awesome. And this is like Krytos Trap, kind of the climax of the story, and sort of towards the end has the Lusankia bursting out of the surface of Coruscant to escape and go to Typhera. And it's one of the most iconic shots, if you can call it a shot because it's written, but like one of the most iconic visuals in Star Wars Legends. It's really cool. This is the one where Isard really takes center stage, even if she's not like, super like literally center stage. She is significantly more active in this novel, and she like Isard's such a fun villain because she is so evil, but like she's so manipulative, and she is a schemer. She loves toying with people. She is very sadistic. She's heartless. She's the ice heart and whatnot, and she's great in this. And one thing I'll definitely harp on a lot, or not necessarily harp on, but repeat a lot, I should say, in this. And one thing I probably should have mentioned at the top is that I'm someone who thinks that any good story needs a good villain. I'm someone who likes good villains because they are fun to root against. As like, and naturally, as someone who's there, as stories are kind of designed for you to root for the protagonist, a good antagonist makes the story better, in my opinion. And the Thrawn trilogy, especially, has a really good antagonist. Thrawn is one of, if not my favorite Star Wars character of all time. And Isard, Isan Isard, Madam Director, is also very, very good. So the Krytos Trap, really fun. You get the Krytos virus, and then the trial of Tycho Selchu, and then everything else going on. It's very good book overall. So now then, we're going to go to the final of the initial 4 books written by Michael A. Stackpole, Bacta War, X-Wing Bacta War. This tier. The good stuff with some flaws. I remember, like, this is one where it's the most recent of the 4 that I read compared to this, but again, this is also like in 2023, so it's been almost 3 years ago at this point. It's good. It's, from what I remember, it's good. It's not quite Krytos Trap levels, but overall, I just remember it being solid, but like nothing too spectacular. Like, you get the climactic dogfight over Typhera with oh my god, what's Arisi. after she's betrayed Rogue Squadron. She was the traitor all along, not Tycho. And it's like her and Corran Horn have the duel, and Corran eventually shoots her down. It's like overall, I don't think there's anything too like super bad with the book. It's just like it's overall just solid. But I don't think it's like it's not really solid. It's just solid overall. I don't think I could point to a specific flaw in this one. It just doesn't quite do anything super spectacular. I'll just say that. So now then, we're going to move on to Star Wars Allegiance, the first of the Hand of Judgment duology, and one that I don't see talked about too much. And that is a shame, because Star Wars Allegiance is peak fiction. Oh my goodness, I love this book so much. It is the best that Timothy Zahn writes in his specific style of mashing together like 50 million stories, like subplots essentially going on at once to like kind of mesh together into this one overarching story. It's so good. It's so unbelievably good. Please go read this book. I will never stop hyping up this book. It is. I'm not a literary student a literary student of any sort. I'm not like, I was never a big English class fan. I know a little bit here and there about how things go, dramatic irony and all that. And in the sense of like you as the reader knowing more than the character and that informing, how the story progresses. This book plays with that concept to an insane degree. And it is so well executed because you have so many different plots going on at the same time that while certainly, there's a lot going on, it's very easy to follow in my opinion, because you have the Hand of Judgment, which are a group of stormtroopers who defect and basically become their own vigilantes. You have Mara Jade doing her own investigation of this like slow plot that's developing in the Shelsha sector. I think that's what it's called. You got like Han and Luke doing their own thing. And then Leia and Chewie doing their own thing. And then the governor of Shelkan Wa doing their own thing. And then the assistant governor, who actually turns out to be Moff Dizra in Specter of the Past and Vision of the Future, doing his own thing. It's crazy. I'm pretty sure there's even more stuff going on, but it's so good. It even comes together in the end. Incredible. Like everything kind of meshes together well. The new characters that Zahn introduces mainly in the Hand of Judgment are really fun. The 5 stormtroopers who defect, they're great. Their dynamic is so much fun. And their dynamic with Mara Jade, especially towards the end, is really fun. And I like the one little run-in they have with Han and Luke when they're like, fighting pirates. Also great. Oh my God, I love this book so much. It's so good. Please go read this book. Not enough people have read it. It's so good. Okay, anyway. I will stop my glazing of the Allegiance. So next up is Darth Plagueis, by an author that I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't remember how many he did. I'll might throw in a little edit to say who it is. But anyway, Plagueis is one that is certainly hyped up in the Star Wars community a lot. It is very much praised for being one of the best books. So I certainly had high expectations going in. And if it was just the first half of the book, I would put it probably in peak fiction. Unfortunately, maybe not peak fiction, but definitely incredibly fun. Because the first half of the book, where it's largely following Plagueis as he's kind of doing his own thing, is incredible. It's so much fun. Unfortunately, after he meets Palpatine and starts training him up, I just didn't really mesh with it. It's still a very good book. I just didn't really enjoy too much of the Palpatine stuff in it, if I'm being honest. Like it was neat to see how Palpatine falls to the dark side and then eventually also surpasses Plagueis. Like the climax of the book where Plagueis, it's like taking place almost immediately after the end of or I forget if it's almost immediately after the end of episode 1, or if it's like right after Palpatine gets elected to the chancellorship. And he goes to confer with Plagueis in his like suite, and then Palpatine kills him because he like poisons him and with like a paralysis thing, and then kills him with Force lightning to like complete the Sith cycle and all that. That was really cool. That was really cool. It's just the like second act, or like if you could break it up into threes, with like the first third being everything following Plagueis, where he's like the initial stuff with killing his master Darth Venomous, and then hunting down all the extra Sith apprentices and whatnot, and then like doing more stuff to set up his various holdings and setting up the like Separatist alliance and all that. That stuff is really, really fun. Then he meets Palpatine, and then he starts training up Palpatine, and that stuff it doesn't hit for me, if I'm being honest. And then like Plagueis gets injured in like the bombing, and then he's basically just a non-factor in the story, or he just doesn't show up in the story all that much in a lot of the back half of the novel, because he's like basically just like a recluse after he gets injured, and he's like dives headfirst into trying to figure out how to be immortal, essentially, like trying to, as Palpatine says in episode 3, like saving others from death, and he's trying to figure out how to save himself from death, essentially. And then ironically, it's the one person he thought he could trust is the one who kills him and whatnot. It's poetic. George Lucas was never all that subtle. I'll say that. But it's I might make a lot of people mad with this one. I think this is a bit of a hot take. I don't know. Plagueis, the second half of the novel kind of soured me on it a little bit. It's not bad. I'm not saying this is bad at all. It's just I enjoyed it a lot more when we were just following Plagueis doing Plagueis things, because he's a really, really fun character. And Palpatine is honestly not the most interesting character in the world. He's just kind of evil, to be honest. Like he's interesting enough, kind of, but not nearly to the level of Plagueis. So yeah, I wish I could like this book more, but I just didn't. Again, it's not bad. I wish it was better in my mind. I wish I could like it more. Anyway, we move from one Sith Lord to another in Darth Bane, the first of the Darth Bane trilogy, Path of Destruction. And this is the one that follows Darth Bane in his sort of ascension from initially just a nobody on a random planet to a Sith soldier, like fighting for the Sith Empire, like literally just as a foot soldier, not even as a Sith. And then he becomes a Sith when he when one of the Sith general, or like one of the Sith lords, notices his like talents on the battlefield and takes him in and starts training him up in the ways of the Sith. And eventually ends with his ascension to one of only two. Well, basically at the end of it, he becomes the only Sith Lord left, where he basically just kills all the other Sith Lords with a thought bomb. I'll get into more of that in a sec. But Darth Bane, Path of Destruction is incredibly fun. This book, it takes a little bit to get going. I'll say that. The pacing early on is a little slow. But once it gets going, like once it hits its stride, once it gets to Korriban, it really gets going. Darth Bane is quite the interesting character, because this basically follows his perspective, and he is a very interesting character to follow, because he's not a good person at all, but it's interesting to see his character develop, and him getting more and more, like growing more as a person, growing like less from basically just kind of being willing to just kind of do his own thing and not really care about others. And then like when he's a soldier, he starts learning to fight a little bit more as a group, but then he gets taken from that, so he kind of shuts himself away in the Sith Academy and just kind of does his own thing because he feels like an outsider. And then he like starts to grow more and more powerful, and then he starts learning about Sith teachings. Like he starts learning from Revan in the archives, and then he starts realizing that like, oh, the Sith are actually idiots right now, because this is like really late in the Sith Jedi Wars in terms of time frame wise. Like I'm pretty sure this takes place about 1,000 years before Episode 1, and compare that to like Knights of the Old Republic and Old Republic. This is like this Path of Destruction, like the whole Darth Bane trilogy, takes place like 2,000 years after that. So like this war between the Sith and the Jedi has been raging on for millennia, essentially, off and on. And at this point, like it's, again, not very subtle in this book, but it's pretty, like, it's hammered home that the Jedi and the Sith are kind of, their leadership essentially is starting to blend together, or not necessarily blend together, but like their ideologies are sort of starting to mix, because the Sith leader, whose name I'm blanking on, but the guy who basically runs the Brotherhood of the Sith, is kind of making it more like a Jedi order, where like everyone's supposed to be equal, and it's like they share the power and all that. And it's not like Sith are just taking it from themselves; they're all kind of like taking it for each other. And then meanwhile on the other side, General Hoth, which I still can't believe that they named the Jedi General the name of a planet in in that exists in Star Wars. I never understood that, but like General Hoth being the leader of the Sith, or not the leader of the Jedi that are fighting against the Sith at this point. Like he gets like not necessarily falling to the dark side, but like starts getting a bit Sith in his ways. Like he's very, very ruthless and like very dogged in his pursuit of the Sith, and like straying a lot from his from the Jedi ways, essentially. And it's not a very subtle thing in the book, but it's still pretty interesting. But like eventually with Darth Bane, when he like kind of realizes that the Sith are the Brotherhood of the Sith that are leading everything, they're just full of crap, and him deciding to basically burn the whole thing down and then just manipulating everyone into doing what he wants is awesome to see. Like it's really cool. And him tricking the Sith Master's name I'm blanking on again, to basically create a thought bomb where he's like, hey, you should use this because it'll wipe out all the Jedi. And he just omits the fact that the thought bomb will also kill all the Sith too. And they're like too arrogant and too stupid to realize that's what it does, because they just never bothered to read. It's great. Also his duel with the Sith Blade Master, who's kind of like not necessarily a father figure, but like the like his mentor essentially on I think it's Leheon. It's like Outer Rim planet that has a Sith temple that's sort of towards the end of it. That duel is awesome. It's really cool. Anyway, yeah, that I think I've run my course because I'm trying not to make this episode too long. But Path of Destruction, really good. It is followed up by Rule of Two. So it takes place almost immediately after the events of Path of Destruction. And it basically picks up with Darth Bane finding a very young Darth Zana and basically adopting her as his apprentice. And then they leave the planet of, oh my god, what is the name of the planet? Rusan, I think is what it is. And yeah, then it's a whole thing where Darth Bane kind of trains her up. I wish I could like this more. It's okay. It's not the best. It's better than, actually it's above these two, I'd say. Just because I don't remember, I can't form enough opinion to put these two any higher. I don't remember these being any better, but Rule of Two is fine. It's unfortunately, Bane gets sidelined for a good chunk of the story, or like the Bane we know and like, essentially. That as a character, where he like he's trying to find some Sith holocrons, and then he gets attacked by a bunch of like dark side crabs called ore beetles, I think is what they're called. I might be wrong, but it's something like that. And then I might be wrong. I might flash an edit on here again to correct me, but it's like these weird like indestructible force wielding crabs that like latch onto him and like feed off his dark side powers, and they basically give him the effect of he is in constant pain and has to like be constantly aware to like not fall unconscious, because if he does, he just die. But in return, he just gets a impenetrable shell of armor, so like he's basically unkillable. So it's I am not the biggest fan of that decision, if I'm being honest. It's kind of dumb. Or not necessarily, just a little silly. It's a little silly. Zana also is not my favorite character in this book. She's just all right. It takes her a while to grow as a character, and like after Bane gets sidelined with the space grabs, he's okay. It's the same issue I have with Plagueis, if I'm being honest, where the main character kind of gets sidelined a little bit. I know Bane necessarily isn't the main character. He's kind of the deuteragonist in this one because, it's the Rule of Two and whatnot, but still. And it's all right. The final battle, though, on Tython between Bane, Zana, and then the Jedi is really cool. That duel is, or not necessarily duel, but that lightsaber fight is really good. And then after that, where the trick that Bane and Zana use to basically hide themselves, where they use the Zana's friend from back before she became Darth Zana on on Rusan, with their her childhood friend essentially, and Zana just using the Force to corrupt his mind and turn him insane, and then handing him a lightsaber. So when the Jedi show up after the massacre on Tython, they think the insane dude is the Sith, and then they kill him, and it's like, oh, okay, the Sith is dead. Cool, we can leave. And they just think they've killed all the Sith now, and it's like, that's a clever way to do it, actually. And also the repeated use of that hut of the healer on I don't remember the planet, but he's like a healer who I forget if Bane goes to him, I think in Path of Destruction. I know he goes to him in Rule of Two, and he's like a healer, and then he has a daughter, and then that daughter becomes a character in Dynasty of Evil. And it's like a whole cycle thing, and it's kind of neat. That just kind of goes back to that hut a lot, and eventually the climax of Dynasty of Evil happens there as well. But yeah, Rule of Two is okay. It's not the best. Dynasty of Evil, however, is a bit better. It's not spectacular, but it's a solid-ish end to the trilogy. I think it is better than Bacta War, but I think it is worse than Plagueis. Dynasty of Evil is solid. It's definitely a step up from Rule of Two. I think Zana is a much better character in this one. We also get, I believe the Huntress is her name. It's eventually, she becomes Darth something or whatever. I'll just go with that. She becomes Zana's apprentice, essentially. I think it's Darth Cognis, that's who it is. And she's also pretty interesting as sort of a tertiary main character, Sith main character in this. And then you get the princess, who is the daughter of the healer that Bane killed back earlier in the trilogy. And then you also get her bodyguard, who's bounty hunter, who's former actual soldier who sought alongside Bane, but she doesn't realize it, or she has no idea for the longest time until eventually the end, and that messes up basically everything going on. It's an interesting little twist there, and overall still pretty good. Bane is better in this one than he was in Rule of Two, but he's not nearly as good as he was in Path of Destruction, because it feels like the character arc that Bane goes through in Path of Destruction is it's a complete arc, and then there's basically just kind of not much after that for Bane in the other two books. And it's still overall still pretty fun, where it's both Bane and Zana are Bane's just kind of all right, so I know Zana is going to betray me, because that's the whole, that's how I set up the Rule of Two. She's going to strike me down, become more powerful, and become, the true master of the Sith and whatnot. And Zana's I don't want to do it, but he's also getting really weak, so I probably should do it, but is he really weak? And it's this weird mind game where they both only have a third of the information that the other has, and so they start jumping to wrong conclusions. It's pretty amusing, actually. And overall, it's overall pretty solid. I'll just say that. I don't think I can say too much more on this one, because it's a pretty for as pretty long, decently long as it is, the story is very condensed. And I actually don't mind that too much, because one thing I've not talked about too much is pacing. And overall, I don't think any of these have too many problems pacing wise. There's definitely a few of these here and there that do, but I do like how concise the story is in Dynasty of Evil. All right, so Choices of One is next up. This is actually the sequel to Allegiance up here. So the second in the Hand of Thrawn duology. I really wish I could have liked this book more. Unfortunately, I just didn't like it too much. It was not bad. I felt like every time, when I was going through this whole thing, I was like, I really could just be reading Allegiance right now, because this just felt like a worse Star Wars Allegiance. It felt like it was rehashing a lot of the story beats from Allegiance and not as good. The original characters, or I guess the new villains, essentially, because there weren't too many new characters, but the new villains that we had were the main overall, the puppeteer, essentially, we don't really see until the very end, and the twist reveal there it's not bad, but it could have been done better. Thrawn was also in this, but he's barely in this. We do get a little bit of George Cardass, though, which is kind of neat. I find kind of interesting, but I don't know, the fact that the rebel general or lieutenant or whoever it is, I think it's general actually, that like Han and Luke go along with to the planet that I'm blanking the name of, like the main planet where everything happens. The fact that like he turns out to be a villain essentially, not necessarily like, you know, he's super evil and whatnot, but like he's kind of makes a deal with the devil almost, since he's like desperately trying to get after the Empire and like he's willing to side with some bad people to do it. Is an interesting choice, and I actually think it's pretty cool. But overall, it's just one that I feel like is a much weaker version of the book that preceded it in the duology. So yeah, it's not bad, but it just, you know, I'd rather just read Allegiance again because it's just a better version of that story. All right. So now we get to Wraith Squadron. I'm actually trying to think. So I was trying to think of like when I read this. So actually, just to go over my dates. So I read through the Heir to the Empire trilogy and then the X-Wing trilogy and then Allegiance kind of all in one like long continuous stretch of months from like basically the summer of 2023. I then basically took a year off, and actually no, I had Darth Plagueis after that, include Darth Plagueis in that. I took a year off basically, then came back the next summer and did the Darth Bane trilogy and Choice of One. Choice of One was a little bit after. I also threw in a couple other books here and there, like The Infinite and Divine in the Warhammer 40k universe. That was really good. That would go into peak fiction if it was on this tier list. But anyway, like after 2024, I came back in summer of 2025 and started up the Wraith Squadron trilogy. And I mean, it's overall, it's going to go here, and not bad, but could be better. It's so, okay. So my issue with this, now I'm kind of, you know, took me a sec to like zone back in. My issue with this is pacing. This is a really long book. Not, it's not Vision of the Future long. It's not Vision of the Future long, but it's a long book. It's the longest of the trilogy by a good bit. Like audiobook wise, I think Wraith Squadron is like 14 hours. Iron Fist is like 11, and Solo Command I think is either 10 or 12. I think it's 10. Like these two are much shorter, and this one, Wraith Squadron, feels long because it kind of is like two stories into one, where the first half or like the first third is like assembling Wraith Squadron, where it's Wedge and Wes Jansen are like bringing together, you know, the Misfit Squadron, or like all the Misfits of the Academy, or not Academy, the New Republic Fighter Corps, and whittling them down to who they want in Wraith Squadron. And that takes up a good chunk of the book, it feels like. And it does drag a lot, unfortunately, because you're introducing like 10, 11, 12 new characters all in succession. So it takes a little bit. But after that, like once the action starts picking up, once their base gets raided by Admiral Trigget and the race can start, like, you know, getting into action, that's when it starts to get good. So that's why I was like initially thinking, you know, it was actually pretty fun. And I was remembering the good parts of it, but no, that's like the pacing on this one is really what brings it down, because it's a rough start. And this is the first one that took me twice to go through, because I started this, got through a little bit of probably like 2 hours. And then I was like, I just can't do this anymore. It took a while, but once you get through, it actually is a really good series. Aaron Alston, who writes this Wraith Squadron trilogy, he's really good at writing comedy. These books are really funny sometimes. Probably some of the funniest out here, except for Scoundrels. We'll get Scoundrels in a sec. But yeah, once you really get into it, it's solid. It just takes a good while to get there. So we're actually just gonna jump right into Iron Fist, because overall, basically the quality of Wraith Squadron is just goes straight up. You know, it's a linear graph essentially. Like your y equals mx plus b kind of graph, if I remember my high school math correctly. That might even be middle school. It's been a minute, and I was never a fan of math class, if I'm being honest. Anyway, so we'll go into Iron Fist. And Iron Fist was better than Wraith Squadron. It's going to go there. It's going to go above Bacta War, actually. Below Dynasty of Evil, above Bacta War. Iron Fist also, besides having a much better pace than Wraith Squadron, it has the benefit of Warlord Zinj taking center stage. Zinj was someone who was kind of in the background of Wraith Squadron, as Admiral Trigget, who was the main villain of it, was a subordinate, like a direct subordinate of Warlord Zinj, whereas Zinj now takes center stage as the villain of Iron Fist. And Trigget was fine. He was kind of your bog standard Imperial Admiral. Nothing bad about it, but nothing really stands out. Zinj, on the other hand, is fantastic. He is one of the best villains in Star Wars Expanded Universe that I've experienced, at least. He's incredibly fun in Iron Fist and Solo Command, both of them, because he is delightfully just that little bit insane, and it's perfect. Overall, like, I just feel like the actual plot of Iron Fist was a little lacking. Like, it's just kind of fine. It's really boosted in quality by the characters, because the kid, like, this is by now we've got introduced to most of Wraith Squadron. Like, we get a few new acquisitions, and it takes a little bit to introduce Zinj and whatnot, and like really get people to understand who he is and whatnot, and then General Melvar, his direct subordinate. But overall, Iron Fist, very, very good. And in terms of its character work, it's also really, really funny as well when it wants to be. The overall running gag of the trilogy with Catch the Stuffed Ewok is great. And like Wedge having to, I think it's in this one. I don't think it's in the next one, but I'm pretty sure it's in this one where Wedge has to pretend to be Catch to fool Baron Fell in the 181st. It's great. It's so good. And yeah, it's like even the dramatic moments with oh my god, Ton Fanon's death, like about halfway through, where him and Face are like Fanon crash landed, and then Face goes after him to find him, and they have to like avoid Raptor troopers for like a couple days, and then Fanon eventually like dies in his arms. It's great. And then also Cassian Dawn's death, also like very much spoiling who dies in this book, but like Cassian's death, like even if it's a little abrupt, it's still like, these guys are human, like they mess up and whatnot, and like the abruptness of it, and then Shala and Face, and I think Dia as well. I forget who was the third one there, but them having to like not break in front of Zinj when they bring in Cassian's body, and it's very tense scene. And it's overall it's a good book. I just think the narrative and like the overall plot was a little weak. We do get to Solo Command after that, and this one I think is the best of the Wraith Squadron trilogy. I'm actually going to put this above Krytos Trap. Solo Command is really fun. We get a lot more Han Solo in this, as kind of the title suggests, because this is really where the dynamic between Han Solo and Warlord Zinj gets expanded, as we kind of see in Courtship. And I'm going to get to that in a sec. But yeah, Solo Command is really, it just basically, it takes everything good about Wraith Squadron and Iron Fist and does a little bit better. The characters are like the best they are in this trilogy. The writing's tight. The pacing's really good. There's a lot of action that goes on. The tricks that Zinj pulls off is great. Even the supporting cast is good. Like the doctor that Zinj hires, who works for Binring Biomedicals, and like who created Vortz Bingring, the Piggy, the Gamorrean who flies an X-wing. He's great. He's one of my favorite characters in this trilogy. She, like the doctor's name I'm forgetting. She's great, even if I feel like her story kind of gets wrapped up a little too quickly. But overall, it's still one that I think that like this is where the trilogy builds up to this, and I think this is the best of the trilogy. Like the battle with Second Death is really cool. Like salvaging the Razor's Kiss from the end of Iron Fist with the destroyed Super Star Destroyer that the Rebels wrecked with the messed up plans. And like Zinj using that to like fake his death essentially is really clever. And also like, using the orbital night cloak satellites that are introduced in Courtship, because Courtship is, well, actually I'm going to get to that in just a sec because that comes after, but Courtship is the one that introduced Zinj and, like a lot of the stuff as well. But like bringing the orbital night cloaks back into Solo Command for the Second Death, and like having that be the reason why everyone thought Zinj was dead really cool move there. And it's overall, it's just good. Like, it's good Star Wars. Honestly, that's, I think, all I can say. So we will get to Courtship now. And if you watched my podcast episode on the Wraith Squadron trilogy and Courtship, you would know I do not like this book. It is not good. There are certainly, I guess, some redeeming qualities here and there, but this book is not good at all. So let me go over what's weird about this, or not necessarily weird, but what's interesting. So for all the faults of this book is actually extremely important in terms of the expanding universe, because it introduces a lot that gets that we see a lot in the expanding universe, essentially. So we get the Hapes Consortium and Princess Solder and Tanino Joe, and then also you get their child Tenel Kajo, who eventually, I believe, marries Jason Solo. I'm pretty sure. So that's a big connection there. I'm pretty sure it's Jason Solo who she marries at some point later on down the line. Yeah, as you can see, I don't have any new Jedi Order stuff on here. I might get to that series eventually. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me all that much, essentially. But anyway, this is where Dathomir gets introduced, by the way. So the Night Sisters, everything going on with Dathomir, and eventually what leads to Darth Maul and all that stuff. You can thank Courtship for that. Also, yeah, Asajj Ventress. This eventually comes from Courtship. You can trace her roots back to here. And then also, yeah, Zinj. He gets introduced in this. And he basically never shows up. He's like in there for maybe 3 scenes. It's really annoying. So the central thing about this is the love triangle between Leia, Han, and Princess Solder. And it is bad. It is not... There's like one redeeming part about it, and it is when late in the story, Leia, who's kind of fallen in love a little bit with the Solder, realizes that she's only in love with the idea of him and not necessarily the reality of him, because she sees him and she sees a way to like a new Alderaan, essentially, to like basically find a shelter for her people, because they don't have exactly a planet anymore after the Death Star happened. And she kind of falls in love with that idea, but she kind of realizes that it's not good in the end, because Isolde, while he might have loved her, he was more looking to marry her to spite his own mother, the Queen Mother, rather than, just doing it out of pure love. I don't mind that too much. I actually think that's probably, it's an interesting revelation, and overall one that I think is better than the rest of the love story. They do Han Solo so dirty in this book. I'm sorry. Like, him shooting Leia with a gun that forces her, the gun of command is what it's called, and it literally forces her to do his bidding so he can kidnap her and take her to Dathomir, because he doesn't want her to marry Isolde. So he can, he wins Dathomir in a sabacc game, and like he's like, I'm gonna take you here on this planet that I won for a week for vacation so you can love me again. And it's so dumb, because he's like, he just sees Isolde and he gets like a massive inferiority complex about it. I don't like it at all. The villains are interesting. Gethzarian, the Night Sister, I should like Force Witch, I think is kind of what they call her, but like the Night Sister, like matriarch, essentially. She's threatening. She's interesting enough, but the way she goes out is really dumb, because it's like her entire motivation is because she's really power hungry, but she's done all she like has needed to do on Dathomir, and she wants to expand her scope of power to the galaxy, because she knows that there's a galaxy out there now, because the whole thing with Gethzarian and the fact that Zinj is like the fact that he has a giant base blockading the planet is that Palpatine himself feared Gethzarian's power. Like, it's stated that. And so it's, she's hyped up to be this insane powerful monster, and she is when we see her on the ground. Like, she completely wrecks Han Solo, like breaks his legs and stuff with a force and whatnot, and like kills Melvar and like a bajillion stormtroopers with a thought. Well, her whole idea is that she wants to get a ship so she can leave Dathomir to go, kickstart a whole, like basically just create her own empire under her command. She gets her ship because she kills Melvar and all the stormtroopers around when they come down to like take Han Solo from her. And so she loads up herself and all of her loyal Night Sisters, and then they leave the planet, and then like Luke, Leia, Isildur, and Han and Chewie fly up on the Falcon and they start following it, and they basically just broadcast its position to Zinj and are like, hey, this is a Gazarian, you should probably shoot her down. And then they just shoot her down and she just blows up in the ship. It's so dumb. I hate it so much. It's so dumb. Like, she is hyped up to be this super powerful force witch that Palpatine himself used. And I get this book was written really early in terms of the Star Wars EU's lifespan, but like, oh my god, it's so bad. Like, she just goes out with a little, like a wet fart. It's so dumb. And Zinj isn't even better. Like Zinj isn't hyped up that much in this story. Like, he's decently threatening because, you know, he obviously kills Gazarian, and then he has deploys the orbital night cloak satellites all around Dathomir and like basically turns the sun off, so it's gonna like freeze the planet and screw it up atmospherically and all that. So, and he's got, you know, the massive force of ships orbiting the planet, and then it's like after the Gazarian goes boom, the Falcon flies up out of the Nightcloak shadow, and then here's the Hapen fleet. They got their 5 billion battle dragons that they have, and then Han Solo just flies into the Iron Fist shield generator and just gets caught distractor beam, launches a proton torpedo right at the bridge and just blows it up like that. It's no fanfare whatsoever. I hate this book. I'm sorry. There's not much good in it. They're like the Princess Solder and Tenenial Geo, their romance is actually pretty good. That's probably the best part of this book. Also, Luke and his Luke basically using Isildur as a test run for his Jedi teachings was hilarious. And then also like immediately applying that teachings to Tenenial is also great. Tenenial is probably my favorite character in this book. She's great. She is like, she deserved a better book, to be honest. She deserved better than getting introduced in this piece of trash. I'm sorry. I don't like Courtship of Princess Leia. It's not good. Leia's not even all that great in this book. Like, one of her main character aspects that is especially expanded on in the EU is that she's really good at negotiating. Like, one of her defining character traits is that she is really good at negotiating and just diplomacy on that. And she has a big like moment where she basically negotiates with the like not evil Night Sisters, essentially. The Singing Mountain Clan, I think, is what they're called. And like, she basically negotiates for her freedom and to like help them out with fighting against Gazarian. You want to know when this happened? Off screen. It happens off screen. We instead get a scene with Han as he's chilling with the Night Sisters, and they like crudely teach him how to handle a bunch of sandworms or stuff. It's I'm done. I'm done talking about this book. I don't like it. I'm going to move on to bigger and better things because it's, oh my god. I'm so glad the quality of Star Wars is better than Courtship because it's not good. Anyway, Star Wars Scoundrels, before I lose my mind, Star Wars Scoundrels is so much better than Courtship of Princess Leia. It's actually going to go up here. Star Wars Scoundrels is really good. I also meant to switch this around. I actually think Path of Destruction is better than Last Command. Oh, Star Wars Scoundrels is really fun. Sorry, I'm still getting over Courtship. Yeah, Scoundrels is really fun. I almost put this in Peak Fiction, actually. I was very close to putting it in Peak Fiction. I bumped it down to incredibly fun, and then I just couldn't. I feel like I just wasn't legally obligated to put it over the Heir to the Empire. But Scoundrels is such a fun book. It was basically billed as Ocean's 11, but Star Wars. And I will certainly take that because Ocean's 11 is a really fun movie. And this is a really fun interpretation of that. It's a heist novel. It's a heist story. And you get Han, you get Lando, you get Chewie. And this is like almost immediately after episode 4. So Han and Lando don't really like each other. The original characters that Zahn brings in for the crew are great. We also get Winter Selchu, who's fantastic in the stuff she's in, and it's like a younger Winter Selchu, so she's like even like got a lot of dynamic there. We also get a young Kel Tainer, which is cool, and Kel is also someone I didn't mention during the entirety of the X-Wing stuff, but he's like kind of the main character, or like one of the main characters of the Wraith Squadron trilogy, I should say. Kel, who's like he's got his own thing, but like a younger, like a basically teenage Kel in Scoundrels is he doesn't get too much screen time, but he's still pretty fun. But over like the crew that Han assembles in Scoundrels is great. They've got a very fun dynamic overall. The villains that they're fighting are great. You get Black Sun, and Black Sun's always cool, and you get the not one but two Falleen showing up is great. Whereas like, yeah, they like the reveal of the second Falleen is really cool. And then also Villager, the like human head of the mansion that is like working for Black Sun and is like consistently in over his head and like just losing his mind constantly because he just wants to be anywhere but present at the moment is great. It's overall it's just such a fun. You don't really need to read too much else Star Wars wise to have fun in this one. It's just a fun self-contained story. Also, the scene at the end, or like at the climax, where after they get the vault out of the vault, which is this giant metal sphere essentially that they're trying to break into, they like roll it out of the spot it was in, and then Han, who's like in a power, like basically a suit of power armor with a whip on it, he's like running away from, he's running away from a giant metal ball while using a whip to scare away civilians. So the very not so subtle nod to Indiana Jones is great. Also the real, actually, I don't know if I want to spoil the final reveal because I'm actually not going to do that. But the final reveal right at the end of the book of a certain character, very, very fun. Very pretty out of left field, but very fun. Yeah, I think because I spent so long dying over Courtship, I'm going to just cut it short on Scoundrels. Scoundrels really fun. Go read it. It's just a very solid story. And we're going to move on to Bacta War, the eighth book actually in the X-Wing series. There's a return to Michael Stackpole, who wrote the first four, and then it was Aaron Alston who wrote the Wraith Squadron trilogy. Then we go back to Michael Stackpole, who writes Bacta War, he wrote Bacta War, also Isard's Revenge. And after kind of I started going out kind of in a lame way in Bacta War, where she just like flees on a shuttle and then gets blown up. I'm glad he brought her back for this, if I'm being honest. He actually brought her back twice because there's a clone of her in this, which is kind of interesting. Bacta War overall, it's solid. I'm gonna put it below Iron Fist. It's one overall that I enjoyed going through it. I love Isard in this. She's great. Both the clone and then also the original Isard. Dalek Krendel is also fun as more of your kind of conventional Imperial. He's not Prince Admiral. He's not just an Admiral. He's a Prince Admiral. But it's one overall that I thought it was kind of, it was there. Like the story was kind of, it was fun overall, but it didn't like do anything super spectacular. It was just like solid, like B plus kind of story. Nothing super bad, but nothing super spectacular either. It was fun overall, but it's, if you want your fun little Star Wars, like action romp with a little bit of drama here and there, it's good. It's nothing wrong with it. I think the outside of Corrin Horn, the rest of Rogue Squadron in Isard's Revenge they're fine. I just feel like they didn't get too much attention in this one. Corrin definitely got a lot, and deservedly so because of his dynamics with Isard, but I don't know. It was fine. Nothing wrong with it, but nothing I think that elevates it over anything else on this list. Now then, we get to Thrawn, the character and the book. The first of the Imperial trilogy that Tim Zahn wrote starting in 2018. So actually, I think the first of these that is part of the new canon, not expanded universe. So that's going to certainly make some people angry. But Thrawn 2018, it's good stuff with some flaws. And this is something similar to Wraith Squadron, where the pacing really hampers this book, in my opinion. It's long and it feels long. It's just got a lot going on. The stuff with Thrawn is very good. Unfortunately, we also get a lot of Governor Pryce as well in this book, and I don't mind it because she's an interesting character, and her dealings with all of the Coruscant political mess is interesting. It just does make the book drag on a bit here and there, and a lot of times I'm like reading through those sections, or I guess listening through those sections, and I'm like, I really could just be, or it was more just like, I wish I could just be back with Thrawn instead, because his dynamic, especially with Eli, going through Eli Vanto, I should actually say his full name, like as they ascend through the ranks in the Empire is great. They've got a very fun dynamic, and the story is fun overall, where like Thrawn is, ascending the ranks of the Imperial Navy, and he's like dealing with Night Swan and the rebels there, and he's like got someone who can match his tactical brilliance, almost kind of. It's fun overall. It's just the pacing really hampers this book, in my opinion. It could certainly use a couple of sections here and there that could just be cut out, and you wouldn't lose all that much. And I think it would make it a better story overall. But it's still one that I think the build up and the climax are good, and the characters are good. Like nothing outside of the pacing is bad. It's just the pacing could be a bit better. Actually, could be a lot better. Now then, we're going to go to the second book in the Imperial Trilogy, Thrawn Allainces. And this book is really, really solid. I almost put this up a tier, but this is going to go right at the top of really solid stories. I love this book. It's so much fun. The dynamic between Thrawn and Darth Vader is fantastic. The sheer opposites that they are, and the fact that neither of them really like each other. Thrawn tolerates Vader. Vader hates Thrawn because Thrawn, he's a very meticulous guy. He would rather, explore, get to know the enemy, explore all of his options, really take things methodically, carefully, not trying to risk it, and like doing that so he can come out completely victorious. Vader, on the other hand, is very impatient, especially in this book, and because this is one that takes place basically right after Rebels Season 3, so right after Thrawn has kind of lost the Battle of Adelon. Like, he didn't completely succeed at the Battle of Adelon. Some of the rebels escaped. And so Vader is not happy about that. And so he, like, the random shade that Vader just throws at Thrawn over the course of this is hilarious because Vader's so petty. It's so much fun. And he's like, you can just feel the, like, anger boiling at various points when Thrawn just like says a word and Vader's like internal temperature rises like 5 degrees. It's great. Vader's such a fun character in this. We also get a much more in-depth look at Commander Pharaoh. Actually, I forget if she was commander or captain. She becomes Commodore Pharaoh by treason, and Pharaoh's great. I love her. She's one of my favorite characters in this trilogy. She's very fun. Then we also get the flashbacks to when Anakin and Thrawn are together in the past when they're on the same planet doing a mission to rescue Padme. And I just love the fact that it's the reason why they're there is that so the Padme's handmaiden finds word that the Separatists are up to no good on Batu, so she goes to investigate. And then she goes missing, so Padme has to go and investigate, and then she goes missing, and then Anakin has to go investigate because Padme's gone missing, and it's like just adding on and on to the people going missing, and then Anakin just bumps into Thrawn like as he's like on the way there, and Anakin is like immediately suspicious and immediately just like their styles do not mash at all because Anakin is very headstrong and like shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. Or jump in first with a lightsaber and ask questions later kind of guy, and Thrawn is not. It's great. Their dynamic is very fun. I also love how much young Thrawn is a show off in this. Like he's got Thrawn when in flashbacks. He's got a little bit of an ego to him. Like the one scene especially that I think of is, I don't remember if I mentioned this when I did my Thrawn video, but there's a point where like Anakin and Padme are trying to deal with like the Courtship woven super battle droids that are being produced in the factory, and Thrawn, who's brought in this like electric stun weapon that can like destroy them essentially, blasts him from a balcony, or blasts the super battle droid from a balcony, and like he's like standing right next to Padme, or like was like basically comes out from behind a doorway to like after he shoots the super battle droid, and Padme's like staring in awe because she thought Thrawn had like ditched them before to like basically because he didn't feel like fighting in the conflict anymore. But Thrawn shows back up, and she's like staring slack-jawed at him, and he just like takes her blaster pistol out of her hand, uses the grapple hook to grapple, like shoot a grapple up into the ceiling, and just like casually rappel down onto the first floor to go talk with Anakin, like launching the pistol back up to Padme, like in one complete stride. It's like it's so over the top, and yet so Thrawn at the same time because like incredibly efficient. It's great. I love that scene so much. I don't know if I can put it into incredibly fun. Like it's top of really solid, probably bottom of incredibly fun. It's a very, very good story overall though. Then we get to Thrawn Treason. And I've already made a podcast episode about the Imperial Trilogy, so you can hear some more detailed thoughts on that. Thrawn Treason is going to be none other than our second peak fiction. Thrawn Treason. I'm honestly not sure if I like this more than Allegiance. They are very, very close. Thrawn Treason is so good. It is, I think, the best we've seen Thrawn be depicted in Star Wars, period. This is Timothy Zahn, I think, at his best. It's a pretty contained story, but it still has a lot of stuff going on in it. The characters are very well written, and the action's really good. And it just works. It works so well. Because like not only is Thrawn excellent in this story, everyone else is too. From Pharaoh being like the perfect kind of right-hand woman to Thrawn, to Brierly Ronan being, oh my god, he's so funny. So very, very brief summary is that Thrawn basically gets drawn into a spitting contest, whatever kind of, male member rod measuring contest. Let's go with that, between Tarkin and Krennic. I was trying to find a safer work way to go with that expression, but it's basically Director Krennic and Tarkin are being their usual selves, and Thrawn kind of gets pulled in the middle of it, and he's basically gets roped into helping Krennic out in order to try and get funds for his TIE Defender project. And so Krennic sends over his assistant director, Brierly Ronan, who is he's so funny. He is such Ronan is a guy who is wholeheartedly believes in the Empire, but believes that only Krennic he believes Krennic is the greatest thing to happen in existence, and that everyone else is stupid. Like Krennic is God to this man, and not even Darth Vader, not Tarkin, not even the Emperor can hold a candle to Krennic. And Ronan is so his any story, any chapter from his perspective is the best. He's so funny because he is just so wrong every time, and it's the best ever because he I feel like there's never enough of people going because he's tagging along with Thrawn, and he has no idea what Thrawn does. He has no idea that Thrawn is this genius, and so he sees Thrawn doing this random stuff, and he's a lot of it's just going you can't do this, and then Thrawn does it, and he's like, how did you do this? You're crazy and whatnot. And it's it shouldn't work because I feel like we've seen this stuff happen before dozens of times with Thrawn. But it works so well because of just how deluded Ronan is. And the best part is so Thrawn ends up meeting with some chiss again. Admiral Orlani, who's a chiss admiral. She's kind of Thrawn's friend-ish. And they have a chiss navigator, Vanya, who's force sensitive because all their navigators are. Not super force sensitive, but they a little bit. And Ronan is able to accidentally stumbles on the fact that Vanya is force sensitive. And he initially gets it on his mind that Thrawn, he's an alien colluding with other aliens and harboring Jedi and all that. And he initially is really upset about it. But then towards the end of the story, when he's starting gets won a little bit over by Thrawn, and he's reassessing things, and he's this could all be a trick. And he's because Thrawn basically sends Ronan out over to the Chiss Ascendancy to kind of get him out of the way in a sense. And basically it's that him and Orlani know that Ronan is going to be up to some nefarious stuff. And they're like, they can at least monitor him through the, like, if he's over there. And Ronan's like, he's sending me out there. Why would he do that? But wait, if they have Jedi over there, perhaps this is, a long-winded way for me to like spy on the Jedi and whatnot, and help out the Emperor and all that. He just takes the complete wrong lessons from it, and it's so funny. I love Brierly Ronan so much. I hope we get to see more of him in the future because he is hilarious. And I also haven't even mentioned Grand Admiral Savit. I almost said Admiral, but he's Grand Admiral. Sean Connery. That's what Mark Thompson made his voice out to be when he was voicing Savit. It was hilarious. It was really, really funny. And Savit is great, as kind of a older, little grumpy Grand Admiral who's has a bit of a different perspective. And I think I've said my piece on Treason. I don't want to go into every single beat of the story. It's just really good overall. I would highly recommend reading this. It's fantastic. All right. So now we get to Specter of the Past. First of the Hand of Thrawn duology. And this one is solid. It's very, very solid. I'm going to put this basically right in the middle of everything. I don't have really too many problems with this book. I just feel like that what it does gets eclipsed by Vision of the Future, and it's a little bit of a spoiler where Vision of the Future is going to go. But it's overall, the story it sets up is really good. The Cosmos document crisis and the stuff that happens during it is also great. With all the conspiracies going on like Bothawi and the riot there, everything with Pelion. Pelion is the star of the show. Maybe not star of the show, but he is fantastic in this and Vision of the Future. The main villains, the Sinister Triumvirate, are fantastic. They are so much fun. Especially Flim, the con artist disguising himself as Thrawn. He is so much fun. He gets even better in the next book, but they're great because their dynamics are very different. Deestra, the old, grumpy, and very power hungry and manipulative Grand Admiral, or not Grand, Moff, who's like basically a kind of a control freak and wants to, always be informed and, doesn't really like the fact that he has to do this, but is going along with it anyway. And then you have Tierce, who is the mastermind behind the whole thing. And they're like, he's the tactical mind behind the whole thing, but he is he's a lot more soft spoken, but he's very sinister and is also certainly control freak and is got a huge ego to him. He's him and Dees were constantly butting heads is great. And then Flim just kind of there along for the ride is fantastic because Flim just does not care. He's just like, let's have some fun, guys. It's great. I love Flim. I want to see more of him. I wish we got to see more of him. He's fantastic. The other stuff going on, with Luke and Mara, is interesting. I think their stuff gets better and also a little worse, but I'll get to Vision of the Future in a second. I know I'm talking a lot about Vision of the Future, but I feel like more so than anything else in this whole list, these two books go hand in hand really closely. And so it's overall, it's just Spectre of the Past, I think, is solid. It's similar to Isard's Revenge, where it's there's nothing that it does wrong. I think it's just there's nothing that really stands out in my mind. It's just solid, but it gets it's nothing great, and it definitely gets outclassed by Vision of the Future, which is going to go right here in the middle of really solid stories. Vision of the Future overall is really good. The problem is the pacing. That is if this book was not 26 hours long for the audiobook, it would probably be up in one of the top spots up here, because when it hits hard, it's really, really good. It's just so long. I think Thrawn Treason is 12 hours. Again, this is 26. It's over 500 pages. It's the longest story on here, I'm pretty sure, by a good margin. It definitely drags on in places. And, I'm going to same kind of thing that I harp on with Wraith Squadron and Thrawn 2018. It's the pacing. there's like parts with Luke and Mara on Near One. There's a lot that drags on there. The good with them, when they're like the two of them are talking about stuff, is great. It's just that there's a lot of kind of bleh in the middle. Also, not Cardass. They're going to Cardass, but Talon Card and Shada Ducal's journey to find George Cardass, while cool, that drags on a lot as well, and it's not the most important thing. And I think a lot of that could have been cut out as well. There's a bit too much going on in the story, and honestly, could have probably, I think, stretched the duology out into a trilogy. I think that certainly probably could have happened, but in the end, like the hives of Vision in the future is great. Like the final confrontation on I think it's the Relentless, anything with Pelion is great. Like all the conversations between Luke and Mara are great. Like Han, Lando, Leia, they're all doing their thing. They're solid in this as well. It's the good of the book is really, really good. It's just the pacing it's just way too long. And I'm never gonna complain about having Star Wars, having more Star Wars and all that. It's just stories need good pacing, and you don't need to fit in 26 hours worth of content into one book. Tim, why did you do that? But yeah, so it's a really good book. Either way, I'd recommend it. It's a lot. All right. Anyway, final two, and I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly because Razor's Edge is pretty short. It's actually like Razor's Edge is 9 hours compared to the 26 of Vision in the Future, so it is significantly shorter. Razor's Edge is one that follows largely Leia and Han Solo as that, like shortly after Episode 4. I think it's like a year or two after Episode 4. Now that I think about it, so I think it's actually shortly before Episode 5. But yeah, Razor's Edge is going to go right here, and not bad, but could be better. It's not bad as the category says. It's the story is just kind of fine. It's not anything super fun. It's just kind of there's a conflict. Like it's Leia, Han, and there's like group of rebels are trying to like get some supplies, and they get attacked, and then they have to go and fight some pirates and stuff. Like the meat and bones of it, it's kind of like a pretty bog standard Star Wars adventure. It's buoyed up that I think if the characters were not nearly as enjoyable, like mainly Leia and Han were not as enjoyable, I'd probably put it in not great, because the original characters are fine. They're kind of flat a little bit. The Alderaanian pirates are like, you get their motivations, but after that they're just kind of whatever. They basically become discount rebels. And then the villains are, the main villain of the pirate war lady woman, who's Vist is her name. She's fine. Like, she's just kind of your typical sadistic manipulator. There's like nothing super spectacular about that. And again, the story is whatever. It's I like the fact that I'm putting this up here is because the dynamic between Han and Leia is fantastic in this book. They are so much fun to watch when it's just the two of them. Because I'm blanking on the author's name, but she gets the like dynamic, the love between like the love-hate relationship that Leia and Han have with each other at this point in their lives. She gets it so well. I love how much like both Leia and Han, like the fact that Leia is like she's drawn, like she doesn't like how much Han pisses her off, but she is A, she thinks Han is just hot, and B, she's just drawn to his bad boy nature a little bit, and it's great. Like she just will randomly stare at his butt sometimes, and it's hilarious. And then Han is the same thing. Like he loves how much of a sassy woman Leia is, because like Han almost immediately clocks, like, and this is something that is like kind of said, and like the fact that he almost immediately clocked how Leia, despite being a princess and being all regal on the outside and being like super fancy and nice and all that, down below she is sassy as hell, and she like very sarcastic, and it's like that is him, and he's like finally someone who can match my sass, and it's like they're so perfect together, and it's great. It's like when it's just the two of them together and just like quipping back and forth, and you know, like Han just calling her all of the nicknames that she hates, like your worshipfulness, your princess and whatnot, your highness, everything. It's so good. I love it so much, and oh my god, it's why I love Han and Leia as a couple, because they're like Leia being, you know, the princess, but also like she is super snarky when she gets angry, and Han pushes her buttons constantly, and she's annoyed by it, but she also kind of likes it too. It's great. It's easily the highlight of the book. And like if you like Han and Leia, you know, as you know, a pairing and just as characters, you'll like this book. If not, you probably don't need to read it. But this is one where, like, if you like Princess Leia, if you like Han Solo, it's a good book. It's just a fun, pretty quick read. All right. Last but not least, I haven't checked how long this is. Hopefully it's not too terribly long, but yeah, this is a lot of content to go through. Yeah, last but not least, Twilight Company, the one that I literally just finished last night when as of recording this. And this is one that, compared to everything else, basically just follows a bunch of original characters, bunch of rebel foot soldiers as they fight over the course of a couple months, leading up to and during, and a little bit after episode 5. This is like right around the time of Empire Strikes Back. We actually see the Battle of Hoth during it. And this is one that is going to actually go right in after Razor's Edge. It's not bad, I'll say. It's fine. It's the story itself, it just feels like it's one that kind of goes. Like the conflicts are just kind of there. Honestly, like nothing too much outside of a couple things really stand out. The rebel soldiers of Twilight Company are fine. Most of them are kind of one note. Like Namir, the character we follow essentially from his perspective 90% of the time, he's fine. He's just kind of like, it's interesting from his perspective where he's a lifelong soldier, and he honestly could care less about the goals of the rebellion. He's just kind of in it for the fight. So it's interesting there where he's grumpy a lot of the time and doesn't like. Over the course of the story, it's actually like his character arc in this, which is pretty interesting, and it took a little bit to like really like notice, but him growing to become, you know, just from a regular soldier to a leader and also like an actual rebel is good. It just takes a little bit to get going. And you know, some of the other characters are like his little squad he has with him they're interesting, but not like super interesting. The best character in this is Governor Chalice, who is former Imperial governor who basically she defects to the rebels early on in the story to basically because she's very petty, really, really petty, tries to hide it, and usually is pretty good at hiding it, but she's like a very petty and vindictive person and wants to get back in the Empire for like seemingly like doing her wrong and like ignoring her talents because she is very talented at like creating stuff, essentially. Like she can see various holes in intelligence networks and whatnot, and like supply chains and all that, and that's kind of why the rebels keep her around. And her dynamic with Twilight Company and especially Namir is good. Like Chalice like bringing a very, very different energy compared to the rest of Twilight Squadron or Twilight Company is great, where she is very arrogant and very full of herself, and not in the like in the sense of like she knows exactly what she brings to the table, and she is not afraid of showing it. And like she's not afraid of letting people know of her worth either. And she's like someone who is completely willing to just talk her way out of any situation, no matter how dire. It's great. She definitely elevates the book a good bit. This also has, again, not necessarily again, but it has a very good scene with Darth Vader. The one scene he shows up in, and during the Battle of Hoth, and with basically every interpretation or like every depiction we see of Darth Vader in Disney canon, they like knock it out of the park. It's crazy. Like their track record with specifically Darth Vader is insane. And when he shows up in Twilight Company, he's treated as the monster we all expect him to be, because he basically has his mini hallway moment, pretty much. Like it's the Namir and Chalice and a couple of his squad members are trying to escape Echo Base, as it's getting overrun by the Imperials, and they're like almost home free. And then Vader shows up down at the other end of the hallway, and Namir, who's like, he's basically from a backwater planet. He's like barely knows what a blaster is. Like, it was like his first time in space when Twilight Company picked him up like a few years prior to this. Never, like, basically thought Darth Vader was just kind of like superstition that some rebels would say. And it's like, you know, it's like, Darth Vader, who's this? And he's like, you guys are just making this up. And then he like sees Darth Vader activate his lightsaber, and he's like his brain just freezes. Like, he has no idea what's happening. And then it's like, Vader goes from like this sort of mythical like figment of his imagination that he's only heard from in passing stories to the literal devil come to kill him, and he has like no idea what to do. It's such a good depiction of Vader, like, you know, just in the eyes of a random foot soldier, pretty much. And you know, it's great. It's really, really, really good. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the book is just kind of okay. Yeah. And I honestly, there's just not much I feel like I can others like. If you like the kind of sort of gritty, like boots on the ground type of military story, you'll definitely like this one. It's just, if you're looking for sort of a more Star Wars-y sort of character based story that, you know, say something like Thrawn Treason would be like, the Battlefront Twilight Company is not that. It's better than Courtship though. There are these Courtship. Honestly, I could put a tier in between these and then put Courtship. I hate that book so much. It's not good. Yeah. But anyway, that is my tier list. I am ready and prepared for all of your hate comments of telling me that this book should be in this tier. That I'm ready for people telling me that Plagueis should be multiple tiers higher. I am aware that I am not nearly as high on it as others, but oh well, just wasn't for me. Sorry. But yeah, no, that is everything. This is not going to be where I stop in terms of Star Wars. I probably won't do another tier list for a while unless I just speed through a bunch of books like the whole New Jedi Order series. But I don't know. There's some that I didn't completely some that I started that I didn't finish. Like, I started, I think, Lords of the Sith, Shatterpoint, and Darksaber all at various points, but I never finished them. So I might get back to those eventually. But yeah, that's gonna do it for now. My voice is a little shot from talking, and I need to go get some water. Yeah, so this is just something pretty simple. I've got a couple videos coming up soon. I actually have one on Pearl Harbor, as, you know, completely different shift of directions. Yeah, so I got a video on Pearl Harbor coming up, specifically what happened to the ships that were sank in Pearl Harbor, since not a lot of them were permanently sunk. So that'll be coming up hopefully pretty soon. And then my big project, which I'm keeping secret because I want to keep it as a surprise, but that is one that I've scripted and recorded almost all of it. The editing is just taking a while, and the motivation to do it has slipped here and there, but I'm going to try and get back to it. But yeah, that'll be it. I'm never been good with outros, but yeah, that'll do it for this one. Go read Star Wars Allegiance and Star Wars Thrawn. They're really good. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.